Shop. My name is Mark Edlund. I am with Scenic Charge here, and today we are going to do foam carving 101. So this is the intro for anyone who really doesn't know anything about foam carving, and this will hopefully give you a place to get started and tools to be looking to put into your toolkit. So basically in foam carving for scenery, we basically use two types of foam. So we use XPS and EPS. So XPS is extruded polystyrene, and that's basically what a lot of you already see. So that are these kind of foams, and usually they come in pink, yellow, and for some reason I don't have any dowel here, which is blue. So it usually comes in a standard size, so you can get 2-inch, 1-inch, 3/4, and this is usually what you can find at your hardware stores as opposed to special ordering. But what we usually use, especially for our larger carvings, is XPS, which stands for Expanded Polystyrene. So both of these are polystyrenes. And so that is your basic white beadboard. And so what that is they take small little pellets of polystyrene and they expand it with heat and steam. So basically kind of like popcorn. And then that's blown into a mold. And so depending upon how much steam and how much of the beads that are pouring in can depend upon how dense your foam can be. So it can be super light, like the packing stuff that you get in a lot of the stuff that surrounds packing stuff, or you can get it super hard, like construction grade. Normally what we use here is 1 pound, 1.5 pounds, and 2 pounds. So 1 pound is great if you're looking for something that carves super easy and is very light. 1.5 pounds is what I prefer because it's the perfect middle ground between where you don't have to be going to carve it, or 2 pounds is if it's going to get a lot of abuse, or you've got actors and singers walking on it. So when you order your blocks of foam, and depending upon, hopefully you're someplace where you can have the foam distributor and get it sent in. So we're lucky here that we have a foam distributor just in Albuquerque, so that's just an hour away, so we can run down and get it, or they can deliver. Or sometimes we have to have it shipped in, and that comes from Denver, which is a ways away. So hopefully there is a foam distributor close enough to you that you can go ahead and get chunks big enough to do some of the larger carvings. So props, lots of times you'll want to carve in some of the softer foams. So the phenol or formaldehyde foams, which are kind of like the florist foams. So that's like the Oasis that people carve in, which is super soft. Or there's also the urethane category of foams. And so that's a rigid foam or the soft squishy foam. But those foams are usually pretty expensive to carve into, especially the rigid foams. So you can buy blocks of urethane, or of course you can make your own mold, because that's basically the two-part foams, and you can pour your own blocks. Of course with the urethanes, that means an isocyanate, and you want to stay away from that kind of stuff unless you have the proper respiratory supply systems to get you through those processes, and we can talk maybe a little about that later. So hopefully the designer has given you a drawing. So today we're going to do super simple, right? So we're just going to do a ball. So either they've given you a drawing to scale, or maybe a model. So you'll get your foam ordered, you got your block. So first what you want to do is figure out how you're going to get your drawings onto your block. So you'll want to do at least 2 different views. So you want to do a front view and a top view. So on the bigger pieces here, what we will do is we will just project. So I'll just make a transparency. I'll take my overhead projector and we will just project that onto the block. So I'll have the size of the block in scale. So then I just take the overhead projector, project it onto the block, and there you go. Or I will project this onto a piece of brown paper, cut it out, and then put that on. Or lots of times what I'll do is I'll just draw the view onto a piece of paper, and then I'll just spray a little 77 on the back, and you can just tack that right onto the front. For bigger things, you may want to draw a grid then, and then do the grid pattern out and draw it on both sides. What is important though, especially if you're looking for a very symmetrical shape, what you want to do is to make sure that what you're doing on one side is equal to the other side. So when you're lining this up, you want to make sure that you haven't like shifted that down or shifted that up. So then, once you got your views put on, so basically you're doing that because you have all this excess foam around the outside that you want to get rid of as fast as possible. I mean, some people who like to sculpt will just take their block and just start hacking. But for time-wise, that takes a lot of time. So most sculptors will want to get rid of as much of that bulk around the outside as possible. So what I've done here is already cut this out just to give you an idea. The other thing I like to do is to make sure I leave myself at least a ½ inch around the outside. And that's because when you go to cut your pieces out, now I just did this on the band saw, and we'll talk about hot wiring and other ways to cut your shape out. That's so when you cut this out, your pieces stay together. Because what you're probably going to want to do, and especially if you're doing something more complicated, that obviously there's going to be, something more complex than just a circle. And so when you cut this out and you pull away all that excess, then what you want to be able to do is put that back on to be able to find these points. And so either you can take a skewer and push through, or a hot knife, but some way you want to be able to keep these points as reference. And so keeping that ½ inch allows you not to lose that face. So here, I've taken my little cube, I've drawn my circle on the front and on the top. I've taken some little pieces of blue tape, and as I cut, I'll tape the pieces to make sure the whole thing stays together so it doesn't fall apart while you're cutting. So go ahead and we'll take these pieces off. That's what you wind up with. So this is where I say if you have that ½ inch, you can keep that front piece, you can put it back on, and those two little dots that you wanted to figure out where they were before, that means you still have this drawing, front drawing still exists for you, just for reference. So if you have a very large item, you're probably going to want to use a hot wire. So we use a system from On Demand, and so this is a commercially made system. And so what it is a power box, and then you got a hose then that has the nitrile wire on it. So these come in various different sizes. Of course, you just plug it in, and then you just do the same thing. You should just take your hot knife, and you'll just cut your shape around. So they've got little handheld ones, and then they've got bigger versions, like this guy. So with these bigger bows, what we do is we've made a couple little jigs to hold these in place. So we have a jig that we clamp to the table, and we can use it as a vertical cutter. So you can take slabs of foam, run it through to cut it down to whatever size you want, or the exact same idea, but it's vertical. And then you can use this instead of having a bandsaw, which restricts you in terms of how tall you can cut. You can use this then to cut. And then lots of times, especially if you're doing really large pieces, that even this is too small. And so they also make a system where you have two handles or nunchucks, and then you clip that on and you have two people holding the nunchucks. And you stretch the wire between, and that way you can cut pieces, we cut pieces up to like 10 feet long. So this is our little homemade version, which is just a little V-stand, and then we just got two handles, and then we just stretch the hot wire between. And so you should definitely have this set up in your shop, especially if you're carving larger things. Otherwise, what you have to do is you cut one piece, and then you'd have to stack the next piece on, and you'd have to glue the thing up in order to get your shape. So then we can move on to the fun part, which is the carving part. So you have your basic shape thing. So then you want to go ahead and start carving. So here I've got my box of different kinds of tools that we use to carve. So on the bigger carvings, what we'll start with is a grinder fitted with a wire brush. And so on this one, to help save the motor, we'll slide a stocking over the top to help keep the foam from getting into the motor and screwing it up. So this is great for getting a bulk of stuff out of your carving. So on this piece here behind me, which is a little piece of the carving, you can see already where here we've just taken the wire brush and we've taken all of this out with this guy. So it's big and messy. So you definitely want your respirator, your goggles, you want leather gloves, because believe me, if you touch this while it's spinning, you'll take a chunk out of me quicker than, and for some reason those kind of wounds take a while to heal, so definitely also have your leather gloves on. It's always good to have a good shop vac too, because this makes a huge mess. You're covered from foot to head. And so lots of times people just put on a pair of coveralls and rubber band around the sleeves to make sure everything isn't getting into your underwear. So some other good tools to have are, of course, saws. So here's just a few of the hand saws, different shapes that are always handy to have. There's also, of course, you can get a sawzall. So if you aren't into doing a lot of carving, the sawzall will save you a lot of time too. With that. So once you get down close enough where you're ready to start doing hand tools, then probably the snap-out blades or the open eyes will probably be your best friend. So there's a couple different styles. This one has a little wheel on it that some carvers like because it gives you a place to put your thumb and you can really pull. And then, of course, they have the ones with just the slider. So it usually depends upon the sculptor in terms of which style they like. I usually have one of each, so you can go back and forth to C, whichever one makes you. And they also make these big jumbo guys. So there again, on the bigger sculptures, these guys are great because it gives you a stronger, bigger blade and lets you take more off a little bit quicker. So we'll go ahead and get started. So all we're going to want to do is start taking this off. Sometimes it's a good idea when you're doing something super symmetrical like this to mark your center points. And then because you know this is your highest point out, so what you want to do is draw a line from there to there. So as you're carving around, you don't want to carve past that, or otherwise you're going to be over carving. So that's the other thing you want to watch out for. And when you do go and look at sculpture, you'll notice how things sometimes are maybe a little too far back, and that is a result of a sculptor over carving. So then they have to kind of correct and push everything back to meet that. So that's the point that you want to avoid if at all possible. So some sculptors, they can just get right to the shape, like right away. They're kind of fearless about it. Other sculptors like me kind of have to creep on it a little bit, you know. They're a little bit more timid. So ideally, at this point, I usually don't wear a dust mask because the pieces are so big at this point that it's really not a problem. Once you start getting into the finer stuff, you definitely want to put on a dust mask just to keep all that dust out. So people always ask, well, don't I need to wear a respirator? And the truth is, probably yes, because our industrial hygienist, Remember Russell, says every time you cut through this, you are releasing minute quantities of, gas and foam and all that. So there's everything kind of roughed in. So the next stage that I usually go to is what's called curry coat. So this is exactly what it is, a horse's curry coat. So they come like this size, and this is great for the really, really big things where you're actually doing full body workout kind of stuff. Or we'll take these and we will break them down into smaller pieces. Or you can take them and do like custom shapes. So usually as you're carving, these outer rings, as they get worn up, will start breaking off. So it just kind of gives you this like automatic. So this is great for getting rid of a lot of the bulk. See, it's just kind of messy. Great thing about these guys is that it gets you this shape pretty quick. So you can probably do the same thing if it's like larger and you have a lot of it. You get the same effect by using your wire wheel. So the other kind of useful thing to do is wire brushes. That will give you the same look, but a little bit finer. Because you start out really, really coarse, and then of course, as you get closer and closer to what you're carving, you want to get smaller and finer. Another great tool we use are the shear foam blades. So they come in different sizes. thumb ones, which are great for doing smaller detail, the little flat ones, and you got round ones. So they kind of work the same way. Sandpaper wood or something like that. So there again, keep track of your center points so you aren't overcarving. Another kind of version of that are some of the file rippers. So these guys, the files, of course, come in all kinds of different shapes and sizes. You got your basic flat files, you got your sculptor files. These are good for doing concave shapes, that kind of thing. They come like big boy sizes, which are great again when you're trying to bring a whole surface down. These guys are super. And then we get down to the smaller files, so that when you're getting into finer detail, like today we're going to talk about doing horses a little bit at the end. So when you're getting around to doing the eyes and manes and stuff like that, you want to use these guys. This is called a riffler. So these are sculptor tools. They can be kind of hard to find, but a complete sculptor carries these guys and you can order from them. They are a little pricey, so keep track of them because people like to walk off on them. And then especially these like little smaller ones, you can get these guys at hardware stores. Of course, Harbor Freight carries all different shapes and sizes of these guys, and they're really handy. There again, you just take them out more. The round guys are great too. So both in the file and in the Surefire blade. And then you basically got your shape down. You think you're happy with it. And so what you want to do is smoothing things out. So I usually start with an 80 grit. 80 to 40 grit. So 40 is usually what I start with, and then you start going up. So usually I do 40, 60, 100. The nice thing with the denser the foam is, the smoother you can get. You can get perfectly smooth. I know a lot of people, especially when they're carving in the super soft stuff, you have all those little loose beads, and it's impossible to get it smooth. So that's why if you're at least getting a pound and a half, you're guaranteed that you're not going to have all those little loose beads popping out. Lots of times for this, what I'll do is I'll take a sheet, I'll fold it in half, put a little spray adhesive between it, glue it together, and then you can take this and then you can cut it up into all kinds of different shapes for specialized carving. Usually when you get to this stage, you can start seeing how true your shape is. And you can then go, oh, still not right, so you can go back and do some correction. And then you go back and forth with this stage until you get it perfectly smoothed out. And then at that point, you're ready to try to figure out how you're going to seal the thing. So here, we basically just use like a couple of systems. Usually on all the sculpt work, we usually go ahead and glue down a layer of cheesecloth. So what I'll do is I'll take the cheesecloth, I'll cut it up into well, depending upon how big your sculpt is, probably like a 6 or 4 inch square. And then basically I'll just with flex glue paper mache the entire sculpt with cheese cloth. So that's basically what we got here behind this guy, and that really smooths things out. So what you can do in that layer is what we'll do is make a little scenic joke and put that on with. So that's basically just a white flexible glue mixed in with joint compound. So we use that for our first layer. We will then do a second coat, and then we'll probably mix a little foam coating. Now that is just a Rose brand product. So you could just use straight foam coat, but that stuff dries so friggin' hard that it's impossible to get that thing sanded. For props and smaller items, it's great, but when you have a 20-foot high sculpture and you're trying to sand that thing, it's always good, at least I think, to add a little joint compound into it to help soften that out a little bit. There are professional hard coats out there, of course. So besides a JC foam coat thing mixture, we also use a lot of synthetic stucco here. So for sculptures that have like a stone finish, that's simple because it already gives you that finish. Or then we'll brush that on. If it needs to be plaster smooth, what we'll do is let that cure, and then we'll just do a coat of straight JC over the top of that and sand that out. So that hopefully gets you to the basic. We can talk a little bit about adhesives, so how we glue this stuff together. So we use, especially on the big stuff, so this is the 3M product, which is on the 3M70. So this comes in all kinds of different size tanks. So that's great, especially when you're laying up really large pieces like this guy behind me. There's the 3M78, which is formulated for polystyrene. The on-demand, where we get our hot wire things, have what they call foam lock adhesive, again formulated for polystyrene. There's also just good old contact adhesive. So this is 3M Fast Bond 30 neutral, and of course that's green glue. This is just doesn't have the green dye in it. For a lot of things, we like to use the foam in the can. So this is basically just an industrial version of great stuff, and it's a lot more user friendly. And the great thing about this is you can close the can off, and you don't wind up losing your entire can. So, and if you buy a whole case of this, they give you a free gun. So basically, here I can show you what this looks like. So they have a couple different versions of this. So they've got high expansion and low expansion. So this is the low expansion, and it's made as an adhesive. So it's pretty great. So there again, this is a 2-part foam. So just keep in mind that, of course, it has an isosite component to it. So if you're shooting a lot of this, there again, you definitely want tons of ventilation, or better yet, take it outside, or if you have air supplied respirators in your crew. So the great thing about this, you can open it up for a lot, just a little bit. You use it a lot, especially if you have overcarb, you can fill back in. So it works basically just like the foam coat does. You just shoot out a bead. I probably cover the whole thing depending upon. So this is a water-cured urethane, so you want to do a little spritz of water. I mean, if you're down south with a lot of humidity, it's probably not a problem. Here in Santa Fe, a little extra moisture is a good thing. It helps it set up a little bit faster. Cool. Next step. Oh, I forgot to show you some of the other grinding things we use. I've got this little pie grinder, again fitted with a little wire brush, so that's super for getting into small little details. And of course, everybody's favorite, the hot knife. There again though, because you're burning foam, with this you definitely want to make sure you have your respirator on when you're cutting with this stuff. When we're carving things here, I usually tend to want to break roots down into their smallest possible piece. Because why deal with this huge chunk of foam when you could deal with something smaller? So we're going to talk about carving a horse today. So what I will do is I will take the designer's outline, and then what I'll do is I'll take that and I'll break it up into like smaller pieces. So even like when we're carving statuary, anything like that, I try to break it down into a piece. So rather than having to carve an entire horse in its entirety, that way you're just carving one leg at a time, or the head, or just pieces, parts of it. And of course, you want to keep this all to scale, so as you're projecting and cutting these pieces, so then when it's time for this all to go together, you don't have issues. So over here on this board, I can show you some of the processes. So like here, you can see where we've got the flat cutout pieces and they're being put together. So there again, we will just pin things together until we're absolutely positive we've got things in the right place. Here, he's a little bit further along. Things are being roughed in. And the great thing about this system is that way, if you need to turn the head or readjust a hoof or something like that, it's easy enough to do. And usually in all our sculptures, we will put a little bit of steel in. Can you see down on this guy? So we'll take the horse, we will, with a hot wire, slice him in half, and then the carpenters will come in and make a steel armature for us and put that inside the horse. Over here, this is one of our little carousel horses that we were working on. Here's a guy just getting started. In the background, you can see he's a little bit further along. And over here, these were 3 horses for Momento Secado. So this, Kirk LeBlanc was the carver on these guys. So there again, the exact same process, just a flat body cut out, legs attached, heads attached. Here we're starting to get the ears on. Down here, you can see they're getting a little bit further along. So here on the manes, there again, we just broke the mane up into all these little separate pieces and attach them one at a time. So lots of times you need to correct your sculpt a little bit. So what we've done here is we've taken some clay and filled that in to make sure that we're getting the right look. What I like to use is a product called paper clay, and the reason I like that is it's easy to work with, dries fairly quickly, but more importantly, it's easy to carve back into. So if you've overfilled it's easy to go ahead and carve back out. So that's the basic process of getting started in carving, and I hope it answers and fulfilled some of your questions. And that does it from Santa Fe. Thank you.